September 1066. One Norse warrior stood alone on a wooden bridge in northern England and killed 40 English soldiers before the entire English army could cross. He was a berserker. He was the last of his kind, and how he became so dangerous is the story almost nobody tells correctly. The year is 1066, the most consequential year in English history. But before William the Conqueror lands in the south, another invasion happens in the north. In late September, the Norse king Harald Fairhair, a 6'5" warrior king who'd served in the Byzantine emperor's personal guard, lands in Yorkshire with 15,000 men. His claim: the English throne by ancient Norse right. English King Harold Godwinson does the impossible. He marches his army 185 miles north in 4 days and catches Hardrada's force completely unprepared at the wooden bridge over the River Derwent. The date? September 25th, 1066. The Norse are scattered, sunbathing on the riverbank, most of their armour still on the ships. They retreat in panic across the bridge, trying to regroup. And then, one man, only one, turns around and walks back onto the bridge alone. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle describes him, a giant Norseman wearing a chain hauberk, wielding a Danish two-handed axe. The bridge is 12 feet wide. Only 1 or 2 English soldiers can attack at a time. He cuts them down as fast as they come. He kills the first, then the second, then the third. For more than an hour, an English army of thousands cannot get past one man. 40 English soldiers fall to his axe before they can even cross a bridge. The English finally win the way they win against legend: trickery. A soldier floats a wooden barrel under the bridge. He comes up between the planks. He stabs the berserker from below with a spear. The giant falls. The English cross. 3 weeks later, King Harold dies at the Battle of Hastings. The Viking Age in England ends with him. And the man on the bridge was the last berserker. His name has been lost to history. His axe has not. To understand what stood on that bridge, you have to understand that the berserker was never one man. He was a member of a documented Norse warrior class, and that class had rules, lineages, ranks, and a place in society that almost nothing in modern history compares to. The word itself, berserker, Old Norse for bear shirt. A second related class, the ulfhednar, wolfcoat, wore wolf pelts instead of bear. 2 divisions of the same elite caste, named for the animal whose spirit they were believed to channel into a human body. They were not regular Vikings. Most Viking raiders were farmers who fought seasonally. The berserkers were professionals, born into specific bloodlines, trained from adolescence and chosen by kings. The sagas name 8 major berserker lineages by name, family lines that were tracked across generations, the way medieval European royalty tracked succession. Berserker tendencies were believed to be hereditary. The sons of berserkers were often berserkers themselves. They were organized in groups of 12. A king's berserker ring was always 12 men, no more, no less. The number 12 was sacred to Odin, the Norse war god, and the ring of 12 was sacred in turn. They served as personal bodyguards, elite shock troops, and the men sent into battle first. Always first. They were paid in gold arm rings, land grants seized from defeated rivals, and the highest social rank available in Norse society outside the king himself. This was not folk superstition. This was the official theology of the Norse military elite, documented across 9 separate sagas over 3 centuries, from Snorri Sturluson's Heimskringla, written in 1230, to Egil's Saga. The record is not in doubt. The most complete description of what happened to a berserker in battle comes from Snorri Sturluson, the 13th century Icelandic historian. His words: "They went without armour, were mad as dogs or wolves, bit their shields, were strong as bears or bulls, killed people at a single blow, and neither fire nor iron told upon them." 9 documented behaviours of the berserkergang, the going berserk, all recorded by men who saw them, or by men who interviewed men who saw them. 1. Fighting without armour. Some berserkers fought completely naked, even in freezing weather, documented in 7 separate sagas. 2. Howling like wolves or bears before battle, a sound the chroniclers describe as not human. 3. Biting the rim of their wooden shield. Archaeological finds show teeth marks preserved in the wood. 4. Visible foam at the mouth, recorded in Egil's Saga and in Byzantine accounts of the Varangian Guard 200 years later. 5. Their body temperature rose so high that visible steam came off their skin in cold weather, documented in the Saga of Harald Fairhair. 6. Insensitivity to wounds. Eyewitness accounts of berserkers taking sword blows and arrows that should have killed them, and continuing to fight as though they had not noticed. 7. Inhuman strength. Lifting weights they should not have been able to lift, killing men with a single blow, breaking shields with their bare hands. 8. No memory of the frenzy. After battle, berserkers themselves could not recall what they had done. They had to be told by the men around them. The Norse called it the wolf's veil. The mind became unreachable. 9. The collapse. After the state ended, a berserker entered a period the Old Norse word oftrek describes. 1 to 3 days of complete physical exhaustion. They could not stand, could not fight, sometimes could not eat. They had to be guarded by their own crew. And there was a 10th behaviour the sagas record more reluctantly. In the frenzy state, a berserker sometimes could not tell friend from foe. He killed his own crewmates, and he felt no guilt because he had no memory. A man did not become a berserker by choice. He was selected, and the selection was brutal. It began at adolescence. The criteria were not secret. A boy had to have the right physical frame, tall, broad, heavy. He had to show documented violence in childhood, known fights, known refusals to back down. And he had to come from one of the recognized berserker bloodlines. Outsiders were rejected on principle. The frenzy was believed to run in the blood, and the kings did not gamble. Those who passed the first cut faced the initiation winter. A single adolescent was sent into the Scandinavian wilderness alone, with one hand axe and a knife, and told to survive until spring. Many didn't. The ones who came back walked into the next phase carrying the weight of having killed to eat. The pelt was next. A berserker candidate had to find, hunt, and kill a bear with no weapon larger than a hand axe. A ulfhednar did the same with a wolf. Sometimes an entire wolf pack. The pelt was never given. It was never bought. It had to be torn from the animal whose spirit the warrior would later carry into battle. Then came the training. Each candidate was assigned a fostri, a senior berserker mentor, who taught the breathing ritual, the howling, the shield biting, and the most dangerous skill of all, how to exit the frenzy. Many never learned. Those men became outcasts, even within the Brotherhood. What they received in return was the highest standard of living in Norse society. Gold arm rings stacked from elbow to wrist, land grants seized from the king's defeated rivals, slaves taken in raids, a permanent seat in the king's mead hall with food, drink, and a place at the fire that no free citizen could ever claim. A berserker outranked any merchant, any landowner, any peasant warrior. Only the king stood above him. For 1,000 years, nobody could explain it. The state was real. The behaviors were real. The collapse afterward was real. But what was actually happening inside a berserker's body? Modern researchers have offered 5 serious theories. None of them is fully accepted. All of them have evidence behind them. The first theory is the most famous, the Amanita muscaria mushroom, the red and white fly, a Garrick mushroom from fairy tales. American psychiatrist Howard Fabing proposed it in 1956. The mushroom grows native in Scandinavian forests, contains muscimol and ibotenic acid, and produces exactly the documented effects: mania, insensitivity to pain, hyperthermia. Siberian shamans used it for centuries to enter trance states. The problem: no archaeological evidence of mushroom remains has ever been found in a berserker context. The second theory is newer and possibly better. Norwegian researcher Karsten Fatur published in 2019 in the Journal of Ethnopharmacology that the plant was probably henbane, Hyoscyamus niger. Henbane causes mania, dilated pupils, hyperthermia, analgesia, and a 24 to 72 hour post-trance collapse. A near-perfect match for the off-threk exhaustion period the sagas describe. And Norse archaeological sites have produced henbane seed traces. The third theory: bog myrtle in fermented mead. Some sagas mention pre-battle drinking. Bog myrtle, Myrica gale, was a common Norse mead additive, and when fermented with high alcohol mead, it can produce real dissociation and altered consciousness. The fourth theory uses no drug at all. A 2018 study in the Journal of Norse Studies argued the documented shield biting and howling were intentional hyperventilation techniques. Sustained hyperventilation produces real physiological effects: reduced pain sensitivity, dissociation, surge of adrenaline, dropped blood CO2. Everything the sagas describe, induced by breathing alone. The fifth theory is psychiatric. A modern hypothesis argues some berserkers had hereditary dissociative disorders that Norse society, instead of treating, found a use for. The bloodline tracking in the sagas supports this. So do the family lineages. The honest answer: probably multiple causes combined. The state was real, repeatable, documented. The single cause is still debated 9 centuries later, and may never be fully resolved. Whatever was happening inside their bodies, the historical record is unambiguous about what they did with it. For 273 years, the berserkers were the elite striking force of every major Norse king. They were not used at every battle. They were used at the decisive ones. June 8th, 793. O.A.D. The island of Lindisfarne, off the coast of Northumbria. 3 Viking longships beached at dawn. Men in bear and wolf pelts walked into the monastery and killed every monk on the island in under an hour. The church burned. The library burned. The holy relics, including the bones of St. Cuthbert, were taken. Alcuin of York, the most influential scholar in Charlemagne's court, wrote a letter to King Ethelred of Northumbria when he heard. His words, "Never before has such terror appeared in Britain." That morning marked the formal start of the Viking Age in Western Europe, 872 AD. The Battle of Hafrsfjord, off the coast of Norway, King Harald Fairhair deployed his berserker units against the combined fleets of the rival Norse jarls who had refused to accept his rule. Surviving scald accounts describe the berserkers howling like wolves as they boarded the enemy ships. The rival fleets broke. Norway was unified under a single king for the first time. 934 AD, the Battle of Brunanburh, somewhere in northern England. Norse berserker units fought for the exiled prince Olaf Guthfrithson against the English king Athelstan. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle records the men in animal skins who broke the English shield wall before being overrun by sheer numbers. Brunanburh was the largest battle in early medieval English history. The berserkers were Olaf's elite shock force. And then, 132 years later, the last of them stood on a bridge at Stamford. Their reputation travelled faster than they did. By the 10th century, Norse warriors, including documented berserkers, were sailing down the Russian river systems and into Constantinople, the capital of the Eastern Roman Empire, the wealthiest city on earth. The Byzantine emperor took notice. He created an elite personal bodyguard called the Varangian Guard, separate from the regular Byzantine army, answerable only to him. Norse guards received gold from the imperial treasury, private quarters inside the imperial palace, and exemption from Byzantine civil law. They were the highest paid mercenaries in the medieval world. The 11th century Byzantine historian Michael Sellos described them in his Chronographia as Norse guards who fought as if possessed, almost certainly berserkers on duty in Constantinople. Some of them died defending the city. Their runic graffiti, carved during guard shifts, can still be seen scratched into the marble railings of the Hagia Sophia. The marks are nearly 1,000 years old. Others survived and brought their fortunes back to Scandinavia. Their gravestones survive across Sweden and Norway, decorated with the rune stones of men who had served Greek emperors. One of them was a Norwegian prince, Harald Hardrada. He served 10 years in the Varangian Guard, returned home with a fortune, and claimed the Norwegian throne. The same king whose invasion ended on a bridge in Yorkshire in 1066. But the height of their power was also the beginning of the end. 3 separate problems had been building for a century, and by the year 1015 they would converge into a single catastrophic decision. The first problem was the one their own people no longer ignored. In the berserkergang, a berserker sometimes could not distinguish friend from foe. By the 10th century, more sagas recorded incidents of berserkers killing their own crewmates than killing enemy soldiers. Kings were losing valuable warriors to their own elite guards. The political cost became impossible to defend. The second problem was peacetime. After battle, berserkers committed crimes the Norse legal system could not punish without losing the warrior. Rape, murder of free citizens, theft from farms. The Norse practice of einvigi, single combat to resolve disputes, became near suicide for any citizen who tried to challenge a retired berserker. Free Norse farmers were extorted by men their kings could not control. The The third problem arrived from the south: Christianity. Iceland converted in 1000 AD. Norway converted in 1015 AD under King Olaf the Holy. And to the new Christian authorities, the berserker rituals, the animal pelts, the trance state, the worship of Odin were not military tradition. They were demonic pagan practice. The church demanded the practice end. It ended that same year. King Erik of Norway formally outlawed the berserkergang. The law, preserved in the Gulating legal code, specified that any man who entered the state or who was known to be a berserker could be killed without trial. His property reverted to the crown. The berserker units of Norway, Denmark and Sweden were officially disbanded. The Icelandic Gragas legal code listed berserker status as a capital crime alongside witchcraft and treason. Kings sent men into remote villages to find and execute the survivors. A warrior class that had served Norse kings for 300 years became a public menace within a single generation. The last verifiable berserker recorded by name in Scandinavian history died in 1198. A man called Lothbrok the Younger hanged in Trondheim for refusing to abandon the practice. After his death, active berserkers vanish from primary documents. There were 3 documented escape routes for the survivors. The first was the Varangian Guard. Many berserkers fled south to Constantinople, served the Byzantine emperor, and died defending a city 1,000 miles from home. The second was Iceland. Some retreated to remote farms in the Icelandic interior, becoming the outlaw figures of the later Icelandic sagas. Men who lived alone, refused Christianity, and kept the pelts hidden in the rafters of their longhouses. The third was assimilation. Some berserkers integrated into Christian Norse society, abandoned the rituals, and lived as ordinary farmers. But the bloodline rumors did not die with them. Rumors of berserker blood in certain Norwegian families persisted into the 17th century. The Norwegian witch trials between 1565 and 1670 occasionally record men accused of wearing the bear shirt. A 1668 trial in Bergen describes a peasant who could go bare, in language identical to the medieval sagas. The berserker profession was extinguished. The memory survived another 500 years. There is one final piece of evidence that the berserkers ever existed. You have used it your entire life. The modern English word berserk comes directly from the Old Norse berserker, chetti, bear shirt. It entered English in 1822 in Sir Walter Scott's novel The Pirate. Before then, the word lived only in the Norse sagas. After Scott, it was everywhere. Every time someone today says he went berserk, they are unknowingly naming a warrior class that served Viking kings for 3 centuries, guarded the Byzantine emperor in Constantinople, fought from the North Sea to the Black Sea, and was eventually outlawed by its own people. A documented Norse elite warrior caste has become an English adjective for any uncontrolled rage. The frenzy was real. The danger was real. The collapse was real. The word in your mouth is the proof. If you want more historical reconstructions of the warrior classes that history almost forgot, subscribe and stick around. Next week, what it actually took to ride with Genghis Khan, the Mongol warrior on the long road to invade Europe. Comment below which era you want me to cover after that.